Hello and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Munoz, CEO of the Cultural Communications Agency, D Flash. Each episode, I bring on different folks who are doing really interesting and game-changing things. And I am so excited to have Leo Lamont, who is an incredible copywriter, content strategist, just all-around troublemaker. It's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hi, Leo.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
Oh, just hanging out here on Juneteenth.
Yeah, me too. Happy
Like,
to be free.
so happy to be free. I mean,
Yeah,
really,
yes.
it's
I don't mean that facetiously. I'm serious.
seriously.
I actually am happy to be
I mean,
free.
last year this time we were all trapped inside. So
This
honestly,
is true. Yes.
we're not even wrong about this.
Facts.
Um, how the podcast always starts, and I am slightly terrified about what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Leo, what was your first job?
This is embarrassing. My first job was working at, I think it was a Friendlies. Yeah, I think it was a Friendlies. I was a hostess at Friendlies.
Oh God,
I was not very good at it.
I feel like you don't have time for people, so I don't know how this would have worked. But okay.
Yeah. I left it after like a few months, and then I ended up working at Old Navy instead.
I feel like so many people vote for Old Navy. I feel like I was the only person who didn't get a job at
Yeah,
Old Navy.
no. Did you learn the folding technique?
No, I mean,
Oh,
like, I ended up working at um, let's see, I worked at Brooks Brothers instead.
mm, okay, got it, got
'Cause,
it.
I'm fancy and such.
Damn, wow.
But I heard the
Yeah.
folding technique at Old Navy is like, isn't it like a little folding thing you use, or you have to? There was a
No,
special technique.
back in my day,
Oh, oh,
we we had to do it by hand.
oh.
Yeah.
And so and what's the folding technique when you do it by hand?
I honestly do not remember, but I just wanted to see if you remembered it. That's why I asked you. You know?
Yeah, I didn't have to fold anything because like
Oh,
everything was already pre-packaged in Brooks Brothers.
yikes. That was not at my Old Navy,
No, it was very.
especially during Black Friday
Oh
when
my.
people would come in
Ooh,
and
Lord.
unfold them, and then management would tell us to go out on the floor and refold them. It was hell.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
you learn early on like people are evil and just ridiculous when stuff like that happens. Like, ew. God.
Facts.
Okay, so we go from master folder at Old Navy to now. I'd love for you to share a little bit of your career journey because it's
Yeah.
amazing.
So where to begin? As a child, I was always pretty creative. So always doing art, design, coding. For all of the millennials out there who remember Neopets, that's how I learned how to code. And from Neopets and LiveJournal and MySpace, kind of leveraged those skills into like a small little graphic design business. As a kid, like drew covers for yearbooks in school. Um, I also, what else did I do? Put together, like drew sets for plays, um, even built websites for friends and family. So then by the time college came around, I told my mother that I wanted to go to school for illustration. And she's Jamaican. And she said that she did not come to America for me to become a starving artist. And I was like, wow, that is valid.
What
And I want
most
to
Jamaican parents say. This is shocking.
I wanted to respect her. And so I decided to do the very Jamaican thing, which was enroll at Drexel University and double major in business and engineering, because she said my four options were business, engineering, law, or medicine. So I decided to do two out of the four to make her, extra happy.
Because you're
Um,
Jamaican.
yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah.
um, at Drexel, I tend to be a very good student. So I was at the top of my class, and then one day I go to the program director and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do art. And she was like, but you have such a bright future in business. And I was like, I don't care. So I ended up switching majors to I think it was called digital media at that time, but was still pretty unhappy. I realized that I wanted to be at an art school, so I switched to the University of the Arts, also in Philadelphia, but was also unhappy, not realizing that I just really disliked Philadelphia. I'm sorry to anyone who's from Philly. Please don't kill me.
Okay. Right. I don't live there, so it's okay with me.
Oh, okay, cool. I do love the cheesesteaks, though. We're not going to get into the cheesesteak debate, though, because I think they're all delicious. Don't kill me. So eventually landed back in New York City, where I was born and raised at the School of Visual Arts in the photography program. But then my mom got sick, and I also had some health issues, so I had to take some time off from school. When it was time for me to go back, I couldn't really afford to pay for SBA on my own, so I decided to just build out my business, building websites for people. I kind of traveled all around New York City tutoring students on how to code, helping them with their homework, teaching older people how to use computers, and that was pretty great. Eventually landed a job at Apple. I worked at the Fifth Avenue Apple store right here in New York City, which is the only, well, I don't know if still, but at the time was the only 24-hour Apple store in the world. So I worked there, and then eventually landed at a tech startup where I eventually left that startup because I was doing customer service there, and then eventually moved to another startup where I finally had a role as a designer. And then since then, I've had an official title of designer since, I guess, like outside of like running my own business, since 2015 or so. And then most recently I graduated, well, last year I graduated and got my bachelor's. So I did go back to school and I went to SUNY Empire. And then this past year, I just finished up a master's degree at the School of Visual Arts in design, research, writing, and criticism. And this summer, I'm making another career pivot from product design to copywriting.
Because of course.
Well, duh, because I'm Jamaican.
I know we have 11,000 jobs. None of this is a typical career. I don't see any. These are the way you zig and you zag. You did leave out the whole like you spoke at the White House thing. Just saying.
Oh, I mean,
just left that little tiny part of the freaking story out.
I mean, like, no big deal. It's like whatever. Part of the White House thing came.
Could you talk about it? Could you?
I skipped over it because I was trying to skip over the drama of how I even got to the White House in the first place, which was my first job at a tech company was Squarespace, where I had a manager. She was the VP of customer care, and her name was Krista. And she told me in a meeting that I was so Black, I blended into the chair. And so that snowballed into a series of events. If you Google Not a Black Chair by Amélie Lee Lamont, that's my full name, but I'm going by Leo now. But if you Google that article, you can find the entire article and read about it with the full context and story. But going public with that article is kind of what boosted a lot of the visibility that I currently have as someone on social media. And it also created a pathway for a lot of people, specifically Black women and femmes, who felt very scared and bullied and felt that tech was toxic. It gave them an opportunity to know that there were other people who looked like them speaking up. And it was because of me writing that article, I got the invitation to the White House through a group called Brioxy. It was in 2016, a group of Black and Brown creatives together in Washington, D.C., kind of like mind melding and like coming up with ideas together. And we got to tour the Obama White House. It was very cool. So, yeah.
Thank you, because I wanted people to know. I know that it was obviously a very traumatic and horrible thing that you had gone through at
No, I mean it
murder and
was,
space,
but I'm
but you
trying
did
to
so much.
I'm trying to like talk about it less because I hate them or whatever.
Mhm.
I think I'm over the trauma. I still want to. It's fine. I'll stop here.
But you were able to give voice to a lot of uh, Black women and femmes um, during a time when it was hard for folks to come forward. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's pretty incredible and brave as hell.
Thank
And
you.
but also you're Jamaican, so not surprised.
Thanks. You're
Yeah.
right. I should bring my machete with me more often
I mean,
places.
what is it? Machete and Ray and nephew, and that's how you know you fun into a proper
That's
community.
true. That's
Like,
true.
these
Yes.
are the things. These are the things. So one of the things that I adore about you is that, like, again, you don't toot your horn not nearly enough, because you graciously invited me to watch your graduate thesis, and I was blown the heck away because it was this incredible Afrofuturism, like, but everyone in the room got it and had their jaws on the floor so I could watch. And it was just so brilliantly portrayed and smart and funny, and remarkably you. And I was like, wow, because you sort of juxtaposed anime with Black liberation, and I was just like, holy crap, this is incredible. Talk about this. And so I'd love you to talk about it because, again, like, I just think that you are just one of the most incredible, fascinating people I've ever had a chance to get to know, and you're so complex.
Complex is a really good word.
Good word.
Yes, that is. I'm going to start putting that in my bios.
That's complex, but
Complex, yes. My vibe.
uh, yeah, I'd love for you to talk about that what you put together, because I think, again, folks will. It's just more folks need to understand and learn. And the way that you juxtaposed everything was really so beautifully done. So
Thank you.
the floor is yours, my friend.
Cool. Yeah. So for this program at the School of Visual Arts, Design Research, Writing, and Criticism, when we talk about design can technically be anything. And so as I worked to figure out what my thesis topic would be, I ended up trying to think about things that I love and things that I enjoy. And I am someone who definitely loves anime, always have, always will. And I realized that there are quite a few Black people who love anime. And I think for my generation in particular, a bunch of us grew up on, at least in the United States, grew up on a TV programming block called Toonami that was on cable television's Cartoon Network. And Toonami kind of blended elements of anime and hip hop and music. It just felt, to me, it felt very Black. And a lot of the experiences I had as a child watching Toonami really kind of opened my mind to this other world of imagination and possibility. And so in one of my classes, we had this essay from a researcher, a Black woman named Beth Coleman. And the essay that she wrote is titled Race as Technology, where she essentially says that it's not so much that race is inherently bad, but if we look at race as a technology, who wields the technology is who determines the impact of the technology. So in this case, depending on who's wielding race, it can have a positive, negative, or whatever the spectrum in between is in terms of impact. And so I thought that was a really fascinating concept that I hadn't heard of. And I wondered what else could be considered technology. And then I realized that maybe the imagination could be technology, something that I could work with and play with, because oftentimes in not, anime exists in this really strange space where it's a cultural export that comes from Japan. But when you look at representation of Black people in anime, it tends to be quite racist because
Well,
anime, yeah, anime is pulling from interpretations of Black people that they're seeing from the United States. That's how anime came to be. It was almost like a challenge to the Walt Disney Corporation and Mickey Mouse and all of that. So creators in Japan were trying to create their own thing to combat that, or to go against that. And so because they're pulling a lot of elements from the United States, of course, they're pulling in the racial elements of Black people. So Black people in anime, even today, tend to have big lips, big eyes, very dark skin, talk very slowly. It's like a whole thing. But despite all of that, Black Americans still really love anime. And I just thought that was so fascinating.
So you can watch that and still be like, yeah, I can still rock with this.
Yeah, which is just interesting. And it's funny because I interviewed quite a few Black people about a few different famous anime. The most famous one that I interviewed people about was one called Dragon Ball Z. And there's literally a character called Mr. Popo.
Oh my.
Wow. Mr. Popo. And he's very, very Black, like blacker than charcoal, big round eyes. So like all you can see when he's like standing in a dark room are his eyes and giant red lips. That's Mr. Popo. And it's funny because like as a child seeing Mr. Popo, I didn't think that was a representation of Black people. I was like, that's not me, that's Mr. Popo. That's not. And then I got older and I was like, oh, that's supposed to be people who look like me. Well, I don't claim it. I sure don't, because that's not me. Which is kind of the vibe that I got from a lot of Black people who love the show. Particularly a lot of Black men love Dragon Ball Z. And so one of the things that I also encountered is that there's a character named Piccolo on the show who's a green alien. And many, many of the people who I interviewed think that Piccolo is Black. And I thought that was so fascinating because I was like, he's green, he's this alien character. Why do you think he's Black? And a lot of the people said that, well, the backstory, the planet that he comes from is called Planet Namek, and it was destroyed, and then the people had to migrate to Earth and were scattered across the universe. So it felt very similar to the story that Black Americans who are descended from enslaved Africans have, which is really fascinating to kind of make that parallel. And so kind of weaving in all of that together, how does a Black person or a Black child look at something like anime and see a green alien and code that alien as Black when the character was not meant to be Black coded in its originating country? That has to be the Black imagination. So I just took that and I ran with it, started to dig into other ways in which the Black imagination is expansive, because without that level of imagination, there's no way for us to think beyond the box, to be bigger than what society perceives us as. Without the imagination, we would be shackled to what whiteness and white supremacy expects us to be. But with the Black imagination, which is something they cannot take away from us, we can be whatever we want to be, no matter the circumstance. So I thought that was really beautiful and just built my entire thesis around it.
Wow. You know, it's just, it's funny that it's like we're having this conversation on Juneteenth. It almost seems like, oh, it's all mixed, it all comes together. Oh my God, of all the days to have this conversation, it's just like, yep, this is a day to have it. But like that's so fascinating. So as you started to build your thesis around it, where did you think you would go? Because you made this incredible custom avatar who sort of was telling the story, and the presentations of it all were so beautifully thought out.
Yeah. Wait, sorry. I was listening to your silky smooth voice and then I got distracted because I was thinking about how nice your voice is. Say your question again. I'm sorry, that was really creepy. I'm sorry. Say your question again.
I said, how did all the pieces kind of come together? Because yes, you made the great avatar who was you giving the presentation, as well as the sort of deck that you built out to sort of explain this to the common people. Because what I thought was really interesting was the fact that like you didn't have to be Black to understand what you were talking about. And that oftentimes is the thing that sort of gets Black people to pay attention. So how did you sort of juxtapose the two?
Yeah, well, I kind of realized that like, even though I was talking about the Black imagination in particular, and that was a very specific focus, I realized that almost anybody could connect with it in the way that I explained it, if only because we all have access to imagination. Although the reason I made the differentiation between imagination and Black imagination is because of the trials and tribulations that people who are descended from enslaved Africans and people who are Black within the context of the United States, the trials and tribulations faced are quite daunting. And I think you need imagination in order to access hope, in order to access strength, in order to access the well of deepness within you that allows you to persevere through that. And so even though it was deeply tied to race, I think that all human beings have access to that in different capacities. I think many people can understand what it means to use your imagination to pull yourself into a different place to access hope. And I think one of the things that I realized is that as I was researching, I came across this quote. I don't recall where it's from, but the quote basically said that imagination and stories are what give us hope from the realities, the harsh realities that we might be facing in the moment. And I think that's what resonated with people, even if you're not Black. If you're someone who has watched cartoons or animation or anime, and you've watched something that was really well animated or illustrated, you can see how hard it hits home for you. Like it makes you feel things that even watching a play or a movie or live actors can do for you. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that there is something like with imagination, you're right, it does give you hope because you can dream about where you want to be and it's yours.
Yes.
You get to hold on to it.
Exactly. Like I'll give you an example. Like one of the researchers that I pulled into my thesis, her name is Itasha Womack, and she wrote this book called Afrofuturism. And in the book, she talks about how she's teaching a film class, or I think it's a film writing class. And she has a Black woman student who is struggling to write an Afrofuturist story because she was like, how do I write this Afrofuturist story without pulling in the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade? And Atasha thought that was so fascinating because she basically was like, that young woman's mind was shackled by the past, and when that happens, when you look at the horrors of the past and it grabs hold of you in that way, it means that you don't have space or capacity to imagine something better, because like that's the worst thing, so why should anything be better? And so I kind of tried to hold space for that as well. Like, yes, this did happen and it's real and it existed, and it does still have impact today. And also, are there ways that we can imagine a future where those memories are no longer shackling our mind, our bodies, our spirits, but we're still learning from the lesson? It's just not holding us back.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It is sort of imagination sets you free.
And
it doesn't require you to like be bound by anything except for as far as you want to go, as far as you want to take it. Like, when I think about, like, it's funny, like I'm thinking about all the cartoons I watched as a kid, because as a Jamaican child, I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of cartoons with my mom. I would sneak and watch them. Because study a book, that's all you have to do. It's fascinating. It's like whenever I have Vivica on the podcast, it's like we all had the exact same parents. What? Like, it's in the water. Like, they teach you the exact same thing.
I mean, not me, but I vibe.
Yeah, it's like
because I was a really good student. Yeah,
Same.
like I came home and I did my homework, and then she would be like, "You finished your homework?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." She was like, "All right, cool. You can watch TV." I'm like, "Oh, great."
Yeah, no, I could watch TV. I couldn't watch cartoons.
Oh no, she let me watch it. She once bought me a VHS tape for South Park, and I told her to return it because it was inappropriate for someone my age. I was like, you don't even read. I was also a goody two shoes. I was like, that is inappropriate. You need to bring this back, mother.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was totally a goody two shoes. And came home, did my homework. I mean, I was a mathlete, and
yes,
You know the Pizza Hut like reading book thing.
Yes.
Yeah, like I murdered that. So much so that the other kids stopped doing it because I like crushed them so badly.
Oh my
I would just eat
God.
books as a child. Like I think
Yes.
the premise was every kid had to read 4 books for the month. I literally read 14.
Please. Yes.
And so I got like
Yes.
I basically got like 10 of the certificates. And so the
My kin.
kids were just like, we don't want to play with more anymore.
I'm
Because I'm not doing anything else at my home except for reading. So what do you want me to do?
That's
Anyway,
so good.
anywho, and it explains a whole lot now. Now I like dream up all kinds of crazy events and stuff to make people feel welcome because I was a shy kid who didn't talk to other kids. See?
Ooh, same.
See?
Ooh,
That's what happens.
look at us now.
Exactly.
Shy kids taking over the world.
Well, that's the thing. But it's interesting because like this thing about your imagination, because I just remember like I always had this sort of like thought and dream in my head of like what I was going to be, and I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but I remembered that I was going to be like in charge and running things, and it'd be really cool, and it'd be bright and colorful. And when I think about what my job is now, what my career is now, what I do now, it is me stretching my imagination because I built my own dream job.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to do all these different things where yes, I'm the boss lady.
Yes.
But it's like it's fun, it's colorful, it's bright, it brings joy. And those were all the things that like if I think about like when I talked to the clouds as a kid, like I talked to Mr. Cloud and Mrs. Cloud. Like that's where my imagination went. And I think, but yeah, it frees you, it doesn't shrink you. And I think that's, oftentimes when we think about when folks are like trying to figure out what they want to do, like they think they have to fit in these perfect boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you instead look at what you can be and just free yourself of any sort of limitations, look where your mind can go, and that can help you focus and put you on that right direction to go make that happen.
Exactly. 100%. I agree.
So yeah, that's my soapbox. So what was the response? That's like because remember I was like texting you the minute you were done, like, oh my god,
yeah, the response.
What's been the response from the SVA community?
Well, for the SVA community, it hasn't been published through SVA yet because if you recall, there was a slight technical difficulty. So I actually have to re-record, and then it'll be put online for like the rest of the community to see. But the folks who did come really loved it. They were blown away. And one of the plans I have is I asked for more time to finish polishing up the thesis that I wrote. Mm-hmm. And I also want to draw a manga to go with the thesis. So I have to finish building out the website, and then I'm going to draw the manga, and then I'll have like the thesis, and then we'll be good to go. I can finally publish it for the world to see.
So you drew that avatar of you?
No. That I just built in a program because I built that avatar in like 2 days, and I was like, I do not have enough time to build this from scratch. So
it looked amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I used an app called Vroid Studio, and it was very difficult to get everything together because I'm on a Mac. There's this trend in Asia called VTubing, virtual YouTuber, where you use a 3D character instead of like yourself to be on YouTube, and you use like a camera to track your movements so it looks like they're moving. But the technology isn't that great on a Mac, which is what I have. So I in order to even get that set up, I had to download an app where, first of all, I made the avatar, I uploaded it to a website, I downloaded an app from the App Store, downloaded my avatar to the app from that website, plugged my phone into the computer, and then had to have my phone camera right below the computer monitor so that it could catch my facial movements as I was talking to the screen. So it looked like I was talking to everyone. It was a whole process, but it was well worth it. So
because of course. Like, I was wondering, I'm like, wait, that's what I thought. I'm like, is this her facial movements? Because like this looks like it's happening in real time.
Yeah. It was me. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, it's not like you know how to do any of this stuff at all. You just happen to figure this stuff out. This is magic. Like, Lord.
Duh.
Yes, duh. So, looking back at all the really awesome, cool things that you've been able to do in your career, talk to me about a time where you're like, okay, this challenge is insane. I have no idea how I'm going to figure it out. And then you did.
I mean, I hate to harp on my thesis, but it's definitely my thesis because it came together in the end, but I did not know what I was going to be doing until February. And the program started last September. I actually had some tension because I had hoped that basically going into the program, I could have a clearer understanding of how to become a better researcher. But the program was more hands-on. And so I had to really go out of my way to like consult books and outside sources to like, how do I even pick a thesis topic, things like that. And so I ended up making a very long list of all the things that I love, because there was a book that I read on like how to be a grad student that basically was like, you definitely want to do your research on something that you like. And I was like, oh, that's novel. I did not consider that.
Just maybe.
Because I really was going to do something that I didn't fully love. I was like, yeah, it's got to be like super academic because I'm in grad school. Yeah. And so made a whole list of all the things that I love, and kind of just had to sit with it, like come up with different thesis topic ideas. But it was very stressful because I was like, I'm going to graduate with no thesis. I'm going to be a loser. This is going to suck. It was very, very stressful. But I think where I landed, I'm satisfied with it. And I think it made me realize that even if you think that you're in a bind, if you're willing to kind of push through and ask for help, you'll figure it out. You will, always.
You will figure it out.
Yeah.
Good. I love that. And you find your way.
Yeah.
Now, thinking about what all the crazy, cool, amazing stuff you've done, what do you think you tell 21-year-old Leo?
Oh my God. Wow. Damn. What would I tell 21-year-old self? I'd probably tell them to stop being a little bitch.
Okay.
I feel like I'm not going to speak for all folks who are in their early 20s, but for me, when I was in my early 20s, because I was such a smart kid, I thought I knew everything. Like I remember one time I went to the doctor and I literally looked the doctor in the face and I was like, I know how to cure cancer. And he just looked at me like,
girl, what's wrong with you?
Like, what the hell? And I tried to tell my teachers in high school that I knew how to cure cancer and they just wouldn't believe me. And I was so sure of myself because I was so smart and perfect and I got straight A's. I was an asshole.
Okay, so your message to your younger self is stop being a little bitch and listen to me.
Yeah, stop being a little bitch. Also, you don't know everything. And also, it's okay that you don't know everything, because I think I acted that way because I felt so insecure. For me, and I think even a little bit now that I'm in my 30s and older, knowledge felt like power to me. It felt like a way to keep myself grounded and secure in the world. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing knowledge isn't necessarily everything. I'd rather have a meaningful experience with my friends than to be, say, huddled in books. Even though I love books, books are great and I love learning things. But knowledge isn't everything. Compassion is important too. And experiences with people you love and care about is important as well, or are important as well.
Awesome. You mean like sitting by the carousel and watching people do a fake proposal?
Oh yeah, that was great.
And a fake dinner with warm sushi and Coca-Cola?
Yeah, that was. Are we sure it was Coca-Cola?
I don't.
I don't, because it was in wine glasses. I don't,
It was.
I don't,
They poured it out of a plastic bottle. It was not
I
wine.
don't, what if it was brown wine?
It was. It.
What if it was brown wine? I don't know why you're laughing.
It
I,
was. It was the most random day I think
I
I've.
that was pretty random.
My
I
listeners.
think it was brown wine.
It was not brown wine.
It was
It was in a
definitely
plastic
brown
bottle.
wine.
It was Coca-Cola. It was
It
Coca-Cola.
was brown fizzy wine that they wanted to trick everyone who was not in on the secret of this newly developed brown fizzy wine. So they put it in a Coca-Cola bottle.
For just a random couple who were there. And they were the only people who were going to be like, oh, this is interesting. Like, let's just and also the warm sushi.
Yeah.
Okay.
That it wasn't it wasn't warm sushi. It was what's that sushi made with cooked food? That's not actually sushi. It was that. Yeah. You know?
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't blame you. For my listeners who are going, what's going on? Leo and I, with another good friend of ours, went to the Brooklyn Carousel, by the Brooklyn Bridge Park last summer, and we were all hanging out because it was like COVID times. We had to actually see people outside with masks and such, and there was a couple who basically paid a company to like give them a date on the boardwalk, and the boardwalk date included what looked like glasses of Pepsi Cola.
Brown fizzy wine. Continue.
Pepsi Cola.
Brown fizzy wine.
And then they had some sushi that they had in like little boxes, not even coolers, just little boxes, so it was warm. And they just sat there and took pictures of the food like it was something important. And we were just were watching this, going, "What in the world is that?"
I think they knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, companies actually charge people for that kind of stuff. It's quite insane. I was shocked.
I too am going to start selling brown fizzy wine as part of my services. I don't know why you're laughing. I'm so serious. This is a
I mean,
new. This is.
you can.
I
I mean,
should.
if you can sell kombucha, you could probably sell brown fizzy wine.
I could probably raise money in Silicon Valley for this.
I
Oh
think.
no, I can't. I'm black. I forgot.
Yeah, no, there's that side issue.
Darn.
Darn.
Golly.
Gee willikers. Well, it's okay. Speaking of which, of experiences and not just uh, reading all kinds of books, what in the world are you doing for your self care, my darling?
Yikes. You just had to ask that, didn't you? You just, millions of questions on the planet. Humans have been here for thousands, hundreds of thousands. Has it been hundreds? I don't know. Thousands, I'll stick with thousands of years. And of all the questions humankind has considered in our long but fragile existence, you decide to ask me about my self-care. And I'm saying this because I'm deflecting because
I know.
Well, I started making dogs. I've been replaying Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Switch for anyone who knows that, because part 2 is coming out in 2022. What else? I am building out an external brain on my computer to manage my productivity. Decorating my home. I tried to get a puppy, and then I asked my landlord like a fool what his policy is on pets, and he said no pets. So I've been quite sad about that because the puppy was going to be my self-care. So now I have to find non-living things to get me through. That's my answer.
Oh, okay. I'm just gonna go back to the first thing you said, which was that you're making dogs.
Yeah, I'm making. Do you want me to send you a picture?
Are you like bioengineering them? Because I feel like I wouldn't put that past you at all.
I'll send you a picture. I mean, I'm not bioengineering them yet, but I am making a tiny dog wearing a bunny costume
Um,
because why not?
yeah, your imagination wants to do that, so why not?
I just texted it to you.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna judge. What the?
What?
How are you making? Okay, so you're actually making a tiny stuffed animal.
Yes. A dog and a bunny, a Shiba Inu specifically, in a bunny costume.
This looks like almost. It looks almost like the Dogecoin dog.
Oh
A
yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
How are you making these?
With felt.
I mean, this I think you could sell at Kid Robot and make a ton of money.
What?
I'm serious.
Charge $80 million for one.
Yeah, just do like no, turn this into an NFT.
Oh, that's so cute. That's such a good
I'm,
idea.
I'm just saying.
NFT
I mean,
doggy.
this doggy is very cute.
NFT doggy.
It's and very small.
Yes, it's tiny.
He's tiny. You are a woman of many talents. Okay. Last question for you.
Yes.
Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Ooh, a give. Ooh, yes. Let me think about it. Sorry, I don't know why I said it like that. I mean, I do now because I'm not right. It's cool. Let's see. My give is I will wait. Can my give be free or does it have to be like paid?
No, it can be anything you want. Free, whatever. It could be advice. Anything you want.
Well, I think my give is nah, that's not my give. Sorry, I'm thinking of it. You put me on the spot. Damn. Okay. To make sure that when you are writing something on social media, let it sit for a while before you post it.
Okay.
That's my give because I've watched, especially as we all have sat inside during the pandemic, a lot of us had been on social media more often. And I'm realizing, kind of going back to what I said about my younger self, where I kind of acted as if I knew everything. I think the world is massive and expansive. And I think it's really important to think about the language that we're using, especially in an American context and how it can come off to other people. So just being more about sensitive about the issues around you and the people around you. And if you have a desire to put out a hot take, like just let it cool down for a little bit and then come back to it. I did the same thing myself. I don't know if people remember the whole thing with Basecamp that happened a few months ago. I was getting ready to write a whole diatribe on Twitter. And then I kind of paused and I was like, I could be eating a meal right now. This is not going to change anything about the situation that has occurred. And my voice is just going to add noise to the existing noise, and it's not going to have any meaningful change. I just want to be heard because I want to be heard, which is not a bad thing, but it did give me pause and allowed me to step back and do something nice for myself that day that allowed me to take care of myself. Because sometimes when you jump into the crossfire like that, you're only hurting yourself. You're not really helping the cause of the issue you think you're helping. So think about your words before you put them out into the universe.
You're so right about that. I have seen so many people jump into shit, especially recently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you do as you don't have to do.
You really don't. I don't know what the compulsion is, because I'm not judging. I feel the compulsion too, but I've been trying to like pull back and be like, why do I feel compelled to like comment on everything? Like
On
it,
everything.
it's like I need to be centered, and I just don't, like, we can't all be centered. We can't all be the star of the show. And we don't need to be. Like, you don't need that to feel validation. You have people around you who love you, I hope. You have things that give you fulfillment. If you don't, like, I firmly believe that you can find it. And so I think it's okay to take things slow. One of the things I said to my friend the other day is that Silicon Valley and the tech industry has that whole paradigm of move slow and break things.
Mm-hmm.
But
You
I
mean
don't
move
think,
fast and break them.
oh, sorry, move fast and break things. Yeah. So the Silicon Valley and the tech industry has this whole paradigm of move fast and break things. But what I don't think they realize is that when you move fast and break things, oftentimes those things are people, and you can't put people back together. And so I think it's okay, especially like in 2021, moving onwards. I think the piece of advice I'm carrying for myself, and I'm also putting on the table here, is move slow and keep it together. Move slow and keep it
Honestly,
together.
that's such good advice because I think, it's what I was saying to you earlier about like how I went from thinking about being all about relentless hustle to like relentless rest.
Mm-hmm.
And like how that is so important right now.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
like you can't discount that for a second. You really can't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like it's just ugh, people are you just really forget how you're right. People just get broken, and
Mm-hmm.
then what? Um,
Yeah, because I've had it happen to me twice. I've had a nervous breakdown just from burnout twice in my career, working in tech, and it's very it's very hard to get back to where you were. I don't think I'm ever quite going to be where I was before those two burnouts happened to me, but I know that especially as I get older, it gets increasingly difficult to bounce back.
mhm.
But why bounce back at all? Why do that to yourself at all? You literally only have one body and one life, so just move slow and keep it together.
Yeah, really, it really is because like if you don't take care of yourself and like yourself, you'll put yourself in the hospital.
And
Like
yeah,
full stop.
exactly. Yeah,
There
that's
isn't.
literally what it is. Yeah.
And so like when you get as blunt and as brass tacks as it is, like no, you will put yourself in the hospital.
Hmm.
That's all there is to it.
Yes,
So you decide whether or not that's worth it to you.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so I think that's awesome, awesome advice and a great way to end the show. Well,
Hmm.
Leo, it is wonderful to have you on the show. I'm going to put all your
Awesome.
social on the
Oh
in the
wait,
show so people can follow
should
you.
I do an ask?
Oh, you can do an ask, of course.
Oh, my ask. Hmm. If you know of anyone who is looking for a human-centered copywriter, tell them to reach out to me. Smiley face, winky face, wink, wink, wink.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I could
Do you do you need copywriting?
uh yeah, but I want to pay you. I kid. uh,
Oh, dad.
I walked right into that one. I couldn't like not.
True, true, true.
I was like,
I
oh,
was like, damn, played again.
so got played. I'm like, girl, that you make that way too easy for me.
Indeed.
But I know lots of folks, so we'll chat. And that is our show.